My name is Philip Charlson. I'm a senior technical specialist with ATG. Today we're going to take a look at shared parameters within Revit. If you're kind of wondering about the title, I actually changed it before my session here. Reason being is, I deal with a lot of customers as a technical specialist with ATG, and I always find a lot of customers dealing with the building and the modeling, but some of them can't quite find the I yet, the information aspect of it. So obviously the information aspect really comes from shared parameters within Revit. So today we're going to delve into shared parameters. So I'll give a little explanation about them. We'll take a look at some shared parameters and how a shared parameter file gets set up and utilized within projects and families. So first off, little introduction from myself here. I have been with a Autodesk reseller for 19 of the past 20 years. I started back in 2001 at a reseller. I came aboard ATG about a year ago. Prior to that, I was a BIM manager for a large national firm. So in these 20 years of, being with the reseller and working with Revit, I've been, teaching, mentoring, implementing Revit to both architectural and MEP firms. I do have the most certifications by a user within Minnesota. I'm up to 22. Most of them are related to Revit. And on a personal note, I love Legos. We can always have a conversation about Legos. Always willing to show off my collection. And I also love Star Wars, hence the little intro music that I had playing before the session. All right, so our main goal today is just getting a better understanding of what shared parameters mean to you as the user within a project. I want you guys to be more productive while working within a Revit project, and I truly believe that utilizing shared parameters more within a project is definitely going to help you out. And whether you've already got shared parameters started for your company, or if you don't know what a shared parameter is, you're gonna find that out, or you're gonna learn more information about it today. So first off, now we're gonna obviously tackle the use of these shared parameters within Revit. So within this webinar, we're gonna look at it within families and in projects, and how they work within schedules as well. So I'll have a little sample project that is developed with the use of shared parameters, so you'll be able to see how it can work for a company on projects moving forward here. So some of the learning objectives that we're taking a look at today is examining what exactly is a shared parameter file. What is a shared parameter? So kind of two different things within there. How are shared parameters created? Also, how they're used within families and within projects. And then also explain those benefits going forward by utilizing the shared parameters within projects. So first off, what is a shared parameter? So if you've been working within Revit for a while, you probably hear a lot about parameters. and there are different types of parameters that you can deal with. So the definition here of a shared parameter um, is one that you can go in and add to families or projects. A shared parameter file is something that is stored uh, typically on a server location. Certain people may or may not have access to it. It is a very critical file for a company to have and to maintain. Only certain users may have access to it if they are going in and adding to the shared parameter file. A lot of times it may be a BIM manager that is going in and adding additional information that may be added to families or maybe schedules within projects. Um, so again, the shared parameter is going to be really a file that is pretty safeguarded for a company, and it's going to hold a lot of data. So you have your shared parameter file, and then within it you technically have different shared parameters, and that number can be unlimited. The shared parameters can be discipline specific. They can also be parameters that can be added to different disciplines, meaning it could be added to an electrical type item, mechanical item, plumbing type item, architecture, structure. Really no limits on those particular disciplines. And the other thing with shared parameters is that they can be reused over and over again, and the same type of shared parameter can be used on multiple type items. So, and why use shared parameters? So, kind of covered a couple of those items in the last one here, but again, they can be covered or used over and over again. When you take a look at, say, a parameter that you created within a project, it may be exclusive to that particular project. Whereas a shared parameter, you're looking at this external file, and you're able to bring it into whichever project that you're working on. You can also utilize them within project parameters, which I'll be talking about here shortly as well. They can be used to develop your intelligent schedules. So instead of having to go in and manually start adding data into your schedules, that data could actually be in the families already, and those families could have the shared parameters. So the shared parameter could be tied into the family and to the schedule, so that the schedule reads that same shared parameter file that was in the actual family, and then populates automatically within the schedule. Also, I've obviously seen a lot of companies still using Excel files within Revit, and yeah, that really is taking the eye out of the BIM when you do that. Obviously, I know there are some companies that have been accustomed to using Excel, and maybe it's something that's been used within AutoCAD over the years. But it's really time to drop that and start developing more of these intelligent schedules and utilizing the shared parameters as a way of utilizing that. Also, a couple other items, obviously being able to use these for different types of family categories. Also, annotations, so tagging type items. Potentially all the tags that you create for a family could have shared parameters within them. If you want it to be more than just a type or a type mark that's listed in a tag, you can have all kinds of intelligent information that's being tagged and showing on your screen within, say, a plan type representation. So I'll show you that here in just a little bit. So where can I use the shared parameters? All right, well, the first one here is probably where, again, most companies utilize shared parameters the most, and it is in the title block creation. So a lot of companies obviously, see the need for adding parameters, or, when you're in the title block creation labels, they want to go in and obviously add information that's pertinent to the sheet, pertinent to the project, and they want it to populate automatically. So that's a lot of times where shared parameters come into play there, that they can go in and customize it so that it is populating that information automatically. Now, unfortunately, that is a lot of times where the utilization of shared parameters stops for some companies. So you got to continue to kind of think of how you want to utilize that information that you're putting into a design, and how that can be pulled out and pushed into a tag or pushed into a schedule, not just into a title block. So utilize those types of instances. So, and I mentioned that here, using it for general tags for objects, expanding upon the information that's tied into those. Also, manufacturers. So when you start going to manufacturers sites, you'll see a lot of Revit content being built. Some of those manufacturers are obviously reaching out to resellers to develop their content. I've created a lot of content for manufacturers, and I utilize shared parameters for those because I want some intelligent data being added into the families for manufacturers. They don't want the generic stuff that you get right out of the box from Revit. They want their data. They want their links to their site, to spec sheets, so that when you download that, you have all that information. So they're adding those shared parameter type information into their families. And then obviously new family creation. So as you're developing families for your company, you want to go in and add shared parameters. You want to add that intelligent information to those families. And then that same shared parameters are being added into your schedules. So that again, we are, automatically populating schedules as we go in and place those families within a project. We want it to, automate some of that. We don't want to have to go in and fill in schedules, like we used to have to do that within just regular AutoCAD. Now, when you start bringing in a shared parameter file into a project, you have another item called a project parameter. So your shared parameter is a file that is external to your project, and you bring in those shared parameters into a project. Project parameters are specific to a project. So what that typically means is that it is defined for that project, and you'll see that some companies will expand upon project parameters in a company template, so that those project parameters are in every project that they start. You can also see that project parameters can be developed from shared parameters. So you can bring in a shared parameter and basically turn it into a project parameter. So you're selecting that particular option when you develop those. Now, I brought up a few points here about some of those differences. Again, the project parameters are internally into a project that's been created. Again, they can be within a company template. The project parameters can wind up being a very long list. So I've seen this with companies before. They just create a lot of project parameters, and that list gets really long as you scroll through there to try and find a project parameter, and it just gets way too long to start to look at. Shared parameters can be grouped into discipline specific or different ways that you want to define those shared parameter groupings. So it makes it a little bit easier to locate those shared parameters compared to the project parameters, which again is just one long list compared to the grouping. Shared parameters again come in one file, easy to move, or possibly easy, what I should say is more easy to share. Typically, you don't want to move a shared parameter around from one location to another because users are going to point to that one location within a company. But if you are maybe sharing shared parameters with a consultant so that they have the same shared parameters that you're using, that is an option. Also, parameters can be combined into one. I've seen from typically third-party vendors, sometimes they have a shared parameter file that they give out to companies that are maybe utilizing their third-party software or some type of add-in, and you want to add that into your shared parameter file. So you want to combine those. You want to only really have one shared parameter file for a company. I know for some, as far as like an MEP firm, it can be a little tough. You're fighting between mechanical, electrical, but it is possible to be able to share one file between disciplines. And it's not impossible to share it between MEP, architecture, and structural if you are a multidiscipline company as well. I mentioned that shared parameters can become project parameters. So again, when you are creating a project parameter in a project, you can select a shared parameter that you have previously created. So that is an option that you have within there. Shared parameter is project from changes. It's not in the project. So again, the shared parameter file technically is, again, it's not in the project. It is actually external to the project that you're working on. It is an actual file. I'll actually pop into a shared parameter file here shortly and kind of show you a little bit of the ins and outs of that particular file. Now, another parameter type that we have is family parameters. So this is probably the most well-known or maybe most used parameter. When you're starting out a new family, if you're into family creation, typically the dimensional parameters that you go and create, say a height, width, depth, those are typically going to be your family parameters. Now, that does not mean that you can't create a shared parameter called height, depth, and width. So that is very possible that you can do that. For a lot of companies, they don't do that though. But if it is something that you want to schedule, then you may want to consider using the shared parameters, because again, the shared parameters can be scheduled, whereas you're not going to see those that height, width, and depth as some options to create. So you'll see a lot of the family parameters again being created when you're initially developing those families. And as you can see here, they can't be used within schedules. You can see that they're used to control, again, the dimensions or materials. Again, materials can be a shared parameter as well. Oftentimes you might see, if you're creating a lot of the same type of content, there may be specific material components on the items that you're creating for families. So you may want to develop more sophisticated material parameters for shared parameters instead of just simply material, and that's what it is for that particular family. Also, there's no repeatability for other types of family categories. So when you go in and create it, it's kind of almost a one and done type instance. So again, with the shared parameters, you can utilize them across all the different disciplines and different categories of items. The other item I like to point out, another parameter, and a lot of people don't tend to use it as much, is a global parameter. Where you might see this being used, and this again is more of a in-project type parameter. Might see it used on dimensions. Just say an architectural type instance for a distance from the door to a particular wall. You might set a global parameter for that. So wherever you have that dimension, you can actually add that parameter in a project. So you're not technically adding it to a family like some of these other instances. You're actually adding it to a dimensional feature in your project and applying a global parameter to it. All right, so how the heck do I make a shared parameter? So I'll actually pop into Revit here shortly to really go through these steps here. But for some of you, you may already have a shared parameter set up for your company. The location may already be set up as well. You may want to check with a BIM manager to find out if a shared parameter is set up. So don't start creating your own if one's already been set up. If you do want to start utilizing the shared parameter and modifying it, again, you probably want to check with the BIM manager to see what kind of access that you can get with it, and maybe get a little bit more internal discussions with the shared parameter. Now, with that, you'll find the shared parameters in your Manage tab, and you go to the Settings panel, and then you can click on the Shared Parameters, and this will pop up on your screen, the Edit Shared Parameter dialog box. And if you do not have any shared parameters, or if you do not have it linked properly, it's going to be pretty empty down below here. If you do have one set up, you will probably see a group here, parameter group. And if you click in the drop down, you may have some additional groupings within there as well. If you have a number of parameters in there, you'll be able to see the parameter list within this white area. If you click in the parameter group, select a different group, you'll see a different set of parameters based on that group created. If you come to find out that your company does not have a shared parameter file, and you are kind of tasked to be the one to maybe start this process, you want to go ahead and click on the Create here, and it will go out to your Windows Explorer, and you basically need to go in and set up a location of where you want to be able to access this. If there are going to be multiple people accessing the file, you want to put that on a possibly a server location. If you want to control that access, you may want to talk to IT about the read and write capabilities of that. Obviously, certain people, again, should only have access to be able to modify the shared parameter information. You really want to know what you're doing before you're coming in here and starting to add parameters and groups. If you have a Revit committee, that would be a very good discussion to have as well in starting a shared parameter file, and what groups that you want, and then what parameters that you want to go in and add to it. It isn't something that you just jump right into and just randomly starting to add groups and parameters within it. There is, you have to have some conversations with people on how you want it to make it look. Now, after you've created that parameter, here I have one that looks a little bit more like one after you've got something developed. again, you want to go in and develop those groups. So the parameter groups that you have here. So right here, I've got just simply project information. So this might be information that might be going into a title block. So you can see all the types of parameters that I have in here. So these are MEP type instances. We got an architect project number within here as well, but a lot of the common data that you might see within a title block. Again, I have the information here. Discuss with the team as to how you want to go in and set this up. Once you set this up, it's hard to go back. After you develop those groups, you want to develop the parameters that you want and double check your work. What I mean by that is when you go in and create a parameter, check your spelling. I've had a number of people ask me in the past, you know, somebody's gone in and set up these shared parameters. They're the worst speller in the world. I don't know, they came in last in the spelling bee, but they want to know if they can change the name or correct the spelling of it. And I'm like, you can't really do that. Once you go in and create these and you start tying it to information, it's done. You know, you can't go back and change it because you're changing the information related to it that's tied to it. So unfortunately, you can't go back and change that information. Now, what I mean by double checking your work is, okay, you look it over and, oh, I added an extra T or something or misspelled it somehow. And yes, you can then go back and you actually delete it out because it won't let you go back and modify it. You have to actually delete that parameter that you created and then go in and create a new one again and make sure your spelling is correct. It will actually come up with an error message, or not an error message, but just a warning letting you know that, hey, you're deleting this parameter. Are you sure? It could be tied to something that's important. So it is letting you know that you better make sure that what you're doing is correct in this instance. So you do have the opportunity to delete it out, but only delete it out if you catch it right away. If it's something that, you know, has been there for a while, unfortunately, you just have to really leave it at that point. Oops. All right, so let's get into Revit here. So I've PowerPointed you to death here. So I am in Revit 2021, and I have a sample project open right now. And I mentioned getting to your shared parameter file. So up at the top here, if I go to the Manage, and in the Settings, I can click on the Shared Parameters. You'll also notice that we have the project parameters above that, and we have the global parameters below that. So I mentioned those in the PowerPoint. But again, we're going to concentrate on just the shared parameters here. So when I go in and click on that, it basically locates that particular shared parameter file. If I go in and click on Browse, I can basically search for that shared parameter. So I've got one here, and a dummy one here for my webinar. And within here, I've got a number of groups based on, you know, different instances of where I might use those shared parameters. Some of them have a lot of parameters within them, you know, long list here. They're all in alphabetical order. Others I can go to might be a little bit shorter. So go in and set up the parameters, the groups that you want. You can go down here, click on New, and then specify what you want for your group names. Obviously, you do not have to have an extensive list like this, but it can obviously grow to something big if you want to. You can go in and rename groups. So that is an opportunity. You can go in and change those. That is fine with that, but it's with the parameters that you don't want to go in and change. You can see there's no rename option for when you go in and if you want to change the name of a parameter. If I click on new for parameters, you can see we can go ahead and give it what name it is, the specific discipline. And when you choose a discipline, if I choose HVAC, it will give you the list of the types of parameters for that particular discipline. So it's not going to give you some generic information. It's going to give you something specific to that discipline to choose from within there. Now, these same types of steps that we're seeing here within creating a shared parameter, you can see as you go in and create a parameter when you're developing a family as well. So you go through some of these same processes. This is just kind of a more scaled back version that we're looking at here, though. So in a family, you're having to go in and create those for each instance that you have for those families. Whereas in the shared parameter, we're creating this parameter one time. And if we want to go in and use it, we can just select it within when we're creating a family. We don't have to fill in all this information every single time. Or we're setting it within a schedule within a project, or we're setting it for a particular tag within the project. So this is the, again, the shared parameter edit, or I guess dialog box to go in and create new ones. If I do select on one here that has been created, click on properties, as you can see, everything is grayed out. So I cannot modify anything if I wanted to within here. So as you can see, if I needed to get rid of this one, if I caught this, maybe I spelled lens, L-E-N-Z, bad speller, and I caught it right away, I could delete it out and then just simply create a new one from there. But if this one's been in here for a while and it's been misspelled, just leave it. Don't delete those out because they are tied to items that are within projects already. Could be in a template for something. So don't delete those out. Again, if you want to create a new shared parameter from scratch, when you click create up at the top here, you can give it a name that you want here. We'll just call this one webinar here. And we go and click on save. Now we have kind of a blank template here. If I click on parameter groups, there's nothing in there, no parameters. I can click on new here. If I go and create one for electrical, now I just simply went in and created my first parameter group. And if I go here, click on new, I can go and create a new parameter and it'll be tied into the parameter group electrical. So as you go in and develop these within the groups, switch your groups, and then go and create your parameters. You do have the option, you can move a parameter into a different group. So that is an option that you have. So that will happen. You will put stuff in the wrong group. You can move them, just don't, again, can't really modify them, but you can delete them out and create new ones within here. All right, so let me go back here and I'll go back to this guy here. So back to one that's filled out here. So this one is actually a copy of the MEP productivity pack shared parameters. So if you do not want to create a bunch of shared parameters, good opportunity for you to look at the productivity pack. There's actually over 3,000 shared parameters in the MEP productivity pack shared parameter list. So just taking a quick look at that. So I'm going to pop open this file here just so you can see what is actually in a shared parameter file. Now, I would not suggest opening this and editing this file. It looks like I did have a question from somebody asking about consolidating multiple shared parameter files. That is something you want to be very careful with. I'm not going to show it on here because I don't want anyone to really mess up a shared parameter file. But if you want to reach out to me afterwards, I can shoot you some information by email and get that back to you. But we're going to take a look at this shared parameter file here. And what is it here? Well, second line there, that's a good thing to say there. Do not edit manually. It should say do not edit manually unless you extremely know what you're doing. And still probably do not edit manually. But looking at the list here, you can see these are all the groups that are in the shared parameter file. So as you go in and create your own shared parameter file, or if you have the productivity pack, you'll see these groups starting to be developed within this text file. So as you create new groups, as you create new parameters, this list will automatically populate in the background. So again, it's nothing that you really have to open up and go in and modify. You kind of want to just leave it alone and let it do its job. But with all these groups, below that, you have all the different parameters. So every line item that you see here is a different shared parameter. So as we look at this, we see that, it's a parameter. It's giving us a strange looking letter number combination here. This is the GUID number. So this is basically the identification for that shared parameter. So this is why you don't want to simply delete out a parameter that's been used and go in and recreate a new one. Because even if you call it the exact same thing, I create another one called one-way throw pattern. It is going to have a different GUID number. This number here is probably the most important thing on this line item here. And it's probably the thing that, doesn't make much sense to anybody, but it is the unique ID number for that shared parameter. So that ID is going to be tied to the family that shared parameter is in, to the tag, and to the schedule. It doesn't care what the name is. It's that number right here, this designation, that is the most important thing. Now, some of the other items within here. So you can see we got yes, no. So that is basically a checkbox item. So when you look at a family and you see that there's a checkbox that turns something on or off, that's a yes, no type parameter that's been designated. The number 48 here, that is actually the group number. So you can see that is group 48 mechanical air terminal. So that is the group that it's been assigned to. And then you have some other items beyond that. You can see actually up at the top here, kind of gives you a listing of the visible description and is it user modifiable. So we'll have a 1 or a 0 for those particular instances for that particular shared parameter. So as I scroll through here, you can see, again, trust me, over 3,000 lines of shared parameters within here. As new productivity packs come out, you're going to see more shared parameters being added to it. Shared parameters don't get taken away as far as the MEP productivity pack. They get added to. We've seen some of the newer features in an updated productivity pack. They'll be coming out soon. But there will be more shared parameters as more needed within here. So again, you can take a look and see, all the different groupings that we have for this. So let me get back to our project here. And I'm gonna take an instance here. We're gonna zoom in and we're gonna take a look at this supply diffuser. So again, this is in a sample project. And when I go in and click on this, you'll see a lot of information over here on the properties. So if you have used a supply diffuser from the out-of-the-box Revit, there's some pretty basic information within there. The way that shared parameters are set up for the families is that it is all tied into all this content that's part of a family within Revit here. So all these different check boxes here for 12 by 12, 24 by 12, 24 by 24, those are all going to be shared parameters that are in that particular family that are being defined as a yes, no parameter that are being checked on or checked off within there. If I go to the edit type properties, again, we see more information within here that is going to be data that is tied to shared parameters. So what that means is that when the shared parameters are added into the families and they're populated with information that is related to the manufactured content, when those items get placed within a project, that means that the schedule is going to automatically fill out with the data that is plugged in to the information within here. So if I go down to the schedules here, and let's see here. Let's go to HVAC. And we got some air terminals here. So we got a master size here. We got some diffuser sizing. So with each of these within here, you're going to see that the information that is part of this schedule is pulling data from those diffusers. If I click on edit here for a field, for fields, and we'll expand this, you'll see that the scheduled fields list is very long for this particular schedule. And you're thinking, geez, why do we need that many columns in an air diffuser schedule? Well, not all of these are necessarily being shown within the schedule, but they are available to be seen, and it's dependent upon how you want your schedule to show up within within your project. So if I go in and select on, let's say one of these here, we'll choose space name override. Okay. So if I click on the edit down here, you'll see that that is a shared parameter. So all the information about that shared parameter is automatically filled in here. So there's nothing really to add to it. You can see that it's grouped under the identity data, and over here, the space name override is going to be defined for these categories of objects within your project. So we got air terminals, and there's other items listed within here as well. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the PowerPoint with the shared parameters, in that it doesn't have to necessarily be one item, one category that it's assigned to, like an air terminal. It can be assigned to a number of different categories over different disciplines. So in this case, we got the HVAC, we've got our electrical showing within here. We got architectural, we got curtain wall type information, we got doors, devices within here, furniture, generic models. So all those items are basically attached to that item within there. Now, again, with this long list, we don't want to see that much information in our schedule. If I go to the formatting, a few things that you might see here as I scroll down. For the fields, the top two here, schedule, appear on, schedule, sort order. So these are shared parameters, but these are hidden fields. So that means they're not showing in that schedule. If you wanted to be able to see that information, we could just set it to or uncheck the hidden field, and we'd see that within our schedule here. But that's where the productivity pack really comes in nice, is that you can edit any of these schedules to really show what you want. I mean, some of you want to have a very simple air terminal schedule, or whatever type of schedule that you want to create. But you'll find that there's a lot of schedules in the pack and you go in and tweak them the way that you want. So it's kind of like, here's everything, but if you want to tweak it the way that you want it to look, you go right ahead and do that. That is totally fine. Um, if you are going in and modifying schedules, related to these shared parameters, one thing I've seen with some users is they will just simply start deleting them out. You can do that if you want. I think almost the easier way is if you don't want to see something, you just come in here and just set it to a hidden field. Because if you have everything in there, if for some reason later on, as you're kind of advancing with Revit more and more, maybe you want to be able to see some of that information that you had hidden before. So you don't necessarily want to delete it out, just hide it for now, and then, bring it back for use later. So again, you'll see a lot of the items right now being hidden, and it's up to you if you want to go in and turn some of those items on or off. Now let me go back to our view here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my my diffuser, and I'll click on Edit Family. So I'll take a look at that one specifically. So if I go to the family types within the family editor here, we'll see that this one contains quite a few shared parameters. Again, if I go in and click on this one right here, oh, come on, there we go. And we'll click on Edit Parameter. You'll see again, this is a shared parameter for that 24 by 12 LAN module. So when they went in and created these, they obviously had the shared parameters set up. They can go in and select, and they can go in and choose. They can find where that shared parameter is located at, and they can choose that particular one to be defined. And when you choose a shared parameter, again, it automatically fills in the information that you've already done within the shared parameter. So if you're going in and creating a number of these custom diffusers, you want to have the same parameters as you go in and develop those diffusers. So if you're creating 10 different types, I want those same parameters for all 10 of those. The mistake a lot of people make is they just simply go in and create a family parameter, and they have to remember, okay, what did I call it in that other family? And they have to go in and make sure that they type in the same information, same discipline, same type of parameter, and you're going to make mistakes with that. If you go in and create shared parameters, all I have to do is make sure that I'm selecting the same parameter and it's tied into all of those families that I go in and create. Now, one step further that you can take with shared parameters, so going a little bit beyond, if you do happen to have the CTC Express tools, I use this a lot for developing manufactured content, but I like to create a kind of a family that is already set and developed, with all the different parameters that I want for it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up we'll open up just a sample file here. So right out of the box here, let's even go basic here. We'll go with just the basic table right out of the box here. I have to have at least just one family file open to be able to use this tool. But if I go up here to the CTC software and go to premium tools, we have a tool here called the Family Processor. So this is a tool that I use most often out of all the Express tools because it saves me a ton of time. But, and I'm not going to go through all the steps of the Family Processor here, but the one thing I wanted to show you was the change parameters. And what you can do with the change parameters is with the shared parameter file that you have selected, We can go in and select what parameters that we want to go in and add to a grouping of families that we create. We can choose if we want to add just simply family parameters. Do we want to replace family parameters with shared parameters? And do we want to change different parameters? So if I go back to add parameters, this is one I use quite often. With this, I can go in and go through my list here and select which parameters that I want to go in and add to a grouping of families. If I just choose, I'll just scroll down here and just choose a random one here. So we'll choose hood depth here, and I'll go in and add that to selected parameters. I already had a few other ones within here as well. So I've got 6 shared parameters that I'm going to go in and add to a family. So after I go through this step here, I'm going to go to select families and begin. And I'm going to remove that. And I'll just go to a location here to browse for something. All right, so I have I got a supply diffuser hosted. I think this is the one right out of the box. Okay, so I have this one selected. I'll go and add that. Now I could have a number of files within here, and I could select all of them in one shot. I'm just going to do the one here, make it nice and easy, quick, and just have the override preview image with the preview name here. And I'll just go and click on begin processing. So you can see it's going to give me a list of what it's going to do. So I'll add the shared parameters. We'll continue processing. And you know what, I think I've already I've added those already, but that's kind of a nice thing because it tells you, okay, it already has those shared parameters in there. It didn't need to add it again. So if a parameter is in there already, it won't replace it, or it won't, it's not replace it, but it won't add another one like a duplicate type instance there. So if I go ahead and get out of there, and let me go and open this one up. And that one, I believe, is right there. So if we take a look at the parameters, there's the hood depth one that I just added in front of you guys. And I also got the other ones here, mechanical designer, drafter, signer. So those would typically be on a title block, but hey, if you want to add them in there, you can add them in there. But as you can see, that is a really slick tool there. If you want to add a lot of parameters to a number of families, that's worth its weight in gold there. It saved me a lot of time to develop families and to be able to put the parameters into a number of families at a time. And then obviously going further, being able to add those types of shared parameters into a project and into the schedules, so that when the end user would go in and place a diffuser like this into the project, we could have it automatically populate. So going a few steps further with a family like this, you know, obviously we would go in and put in specific information for those parameters that we plugged in. But that is also another thing that you can do in that family processor, is if you have general information that you know is going to be the same for all of those, you can actually add it in that family processor as well. You can add those default values, so save you even more time. So all right, let's see here what we have for some questions. All right, so do you have a recommendation, naming convention to organize all the shared parameters? So that one can be tough. Again, that is going to be a good discussion to have within the group. If you do have a few people that are looking to help get set up with a shared parameter file. So this is our MEP productivity pack shared parameter file. This is obviously for the electrical group here, but you can see a lot of these have electrical at the front end of them. If you take a look, if we just put clearance depth, connection, connector arm, depth link, you know, if it didn't have the electrical on it, you wouldn't know that it would be specific to electrical in those instances. So you got to be, I guess, thinking how you want to, again, put that nomenclature in there for naming of items within. So that was electrical, and here's mechanical. Mechanical, I think you'll see a lot of instances where specific mechanical equipment might be called out, and then the more or less kind of the parameter after it. So you'll see a lot of these have a lot of the same end description information in a shared parameter, but it typically has the name of the equipment at the front end of that. Again, Ray, if you want to contact me about the multiple shared parameter files, consolidating those, shoot me an email. I'll give you my contact information at the end here. Another person asked, would it be a good idea to save it in the same place you save your keyed notes file? Well, that depends. If your keyed notes files are the same for every project, you could potentially have it in that same location. If you change your keyed notes for every project, typically you want to have those keyed notes put with your project files. So 2 different instances for those. Let's see here. Create a shared parameter, use it as a project parameter text instance for view category. When I try to put value, it is inaccessible. That one I would probably have to take a look at more closely. Again, you can reach out to me afterwards, shoot me an email, and I can check that out, see what the issue is on that. If you no longer have access to the original shared parameter file, can you recreate it from a Revit project file? Yes and no. You do have a tool for that in the Express tools that would pull that information out, but it's not. You don't have all the shared parameters in the project. That is going to be the issue. It's really only going to be the ones that are being used in the project. So it's not going to give you a completed one in the end. Yeah, for those original shared parameter files, I would almost always keep a backup copy of that as well, in case you do lose it. You know, put it in a heavily secured area, you know, maybe where you have access to it. If you are, say, the BIM manager, make sure that that is well protected. We don't want to have users going in and accidentally deleting a shared parameter file. Again, we want to probably have some IT control over where the shared parameter file is located at. So if people need to be able to read it, they can do that. We don't want them to be able to delete it out. We don't want them to be able to move that file because everybody is pointing to that location for a shared parameter. All right. Somebody asked about adding a shared parameter to a family without the add-on tool. Yes, you can do that. So when I go to the create and click on family types, and I want to create another shared parameter within here, I can locate it, and you just simply pick on the one that you want there and adds it to the list. And then you can choose where you want to group it under. So you can select the grouping within here. So I think I chose electrical here, so I'll choose electrical. And then you can choose whether it's going to be a type or an instance parameter. So you click OK, and then that one gets added in there. So as you can see, that can be a long process, adding it one by one, especially when you take a look at a more complex type family that has a number of parameters into it. It takes a while to create those, but if you do have the tools, the express tools, utilize the family processor for that. Again, that will save you a ton of time. All right, so guess we're at the 1 hour mark here, so I got to wrap this up here. So I am going to post my info here. So if you do have some questions, you can send emails to me. So I do appreciate your time coming in today and checking out. Hopefully you get a better understanding of how shared parameters work, and maybe you can start utilizing those more in projects. Here's my email address. You need to send me some information. Additional questions, you can go ahead and ask me. Also, this has been recorded, so if you do want to check it out again, if you missed something, ATG posts it out on YouTube, usually in a day or two. So thanks again. I'll talk to you next time.